Hello, and welcome to this training course on structuring your coursework for the BSc Hons Business Computing and Information Systems, which is provided by NCC Education and awarded and validated by the University of Central Lancashire. The key to earning higher marks is to understand how to answer certain types of questions in assignments. Here are some examples of the types of questions you may be asked. The first is to critically evaluate, critically assess, or assess how. First, weigh up the advantages and disadvantages of the question, using examples from the case studies and theories or research you have been taught. You should summarise your views based on the advantages and disadvantages that you have highlighted previously. Conclude as to how accurate or relevant the original question or statement is. Finally, suggest if there are any further important points to note or recommendations to be made. When you critically evaluate or assess something, it is key to look at both sides of an argument and examine all the evidence and theories to support those arguments in order to reach a conclusion. Next is to describe how you will and justify your decisions. First, explain your plan of how you will carry out the subjects in question. You should provide evidence to back up your plan, for example case studies and theories. And then consider other ways to answer the question and explain why you have not chosen these methods. When you are describing and justifying something, it is key to put forward your opinions, explanations, and back them up with evidence. You should also consider other possible theories or explanations and identify their strengths and weaknesses. However, it is important to explain why you have not chosen these theories or explanations instead, and why you think that your choice is the best fit. Next is to identify what tools you will use and explain your decisions. You should use theory and research to identify tools and how they can be used. The key to answering a question that asks you to identify and explain is to highlight all the possible arguments and theories and then decide which you think is the most applicable to the question. Ensure that you use case studies and research to back up your points, and be sure to reach a clear conclusion on what your arguments are at the end. Next is to explain why it is beneficial to. First, provide a description of how and why something is beneficial, using examples from case studies and theories. Be sure to refer to key terms. You should come to a clear conclusion that argues the advantages for the topic in question. In this question, it is important to write a bit more in depth and try to understand how and why something is an advantage, rather than just state that it is an advantage. The next is to discuss what is meant by, or discuss a situation where you have observed. First, describe or explain the definition of the topic in the question. Next, back up your explanations with evidence from theory or case studies. Consider the advantages or disadvantages of the topic or situation, using examples from case studies and research. Finally, arrive at a conclusion based on your previous arguments. An example is given here. When answering a question that asks you to discuss something, you're essentially debating both sides of an argument before arriving at your own conclusion. The key points to remember from this session are: always look at the advantages and disadvantages on both sides of an argument. Use evidence from the case study, theories, and research to back up the points that you will make. Conclude by weighing up both sides of an argument and summarising your viewpoints. Make recommendations based on your conclusions. Ensure you always refer back to what the question is asking. and do not use first person pronouns, for example, I think or I would. Try to write everything in the third person, for example, the best course of action is, or the advantages and disadvantages are.